Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Ali. I'm a junior doctor working in Cambridge, and in this video, I want to share 10 top tips for entrepreneurs. So this is stuff that I picked up over the last 6 years of running a business called 6med while I was a medical student at Cambridge University. That business has made about £800,000 of top line revenue over the last 6 years, and if you convert that into dollars, it becomes $1 million. Anyway, in this video, I'll start off by briefly sharing the story of how my friends and I started this company and how it grew, and then I'll go over 10 top tips for students or anyone else interested in starting your own business, becoming an entrepreneur, making money online, all of that good jazz. So I'll keep this part of the video brief because it's not really a story time video. Basically, in our second year of medical school, me and some friends decided it would be cool to run a course for one of the medical school admissions tests called the BMAT. We'd been on a few courses ourselves run by big corporations. We thought they were a bit crap and they were charging lots of money, so we thought we could do a better job and charge less money, and also we could give out free places to students from low income backgrounds. And when we started, we thought it would just be like a small scale thing. We thought we'd just kind of run a course at our local mosque. But then quite early on, I had the idea that because I'd been making websites and stuff since like the age of 12, why don't we just make a website for this and try and market it nationally, and then we'll get people up and down the country to join our courses rather than just people in our local town. And so from that, we made the course material, we made the website, we ran 5 sold out courses that year to about 120 students, and then we were like, oh my god, this is amazing. So the following year, we expanded into the UCAT course, and then we made a course for medical school interviews, and then those did really, really well. So then we decided to make a question bank for the BMAT and for the UCAT, and those did really well. And so every year, this company kept on growing, we kept on getting more students, we expanded our locations, we taught a course in Singapore, we taught a course in Hong Kong, we taught a course in the Netherlands, and it turned into this like surprisingly big thing. But now let's talk about the value of this video, which is 10 top tips for entrepreneurs. So tip number 1 is don't wait for permission. And often when we're starting something or when we're thinking of starting a business or a YouTube channel or a blog or anything like that, we all have in our minds this issue of, I'm just not qualified. Like, why would anyone care what I have to say? And in a way, we're kind of waiting for someone to give us permission. We're waiting for like an official degree to say we're qualified or a certificate from someone to say that we're allowed to do this thing. But like over the last 6-7 years of running this company, I've realized, and my friends have realized, that there are so few domains in which you actually need to be qualified before you can create some kind of product. Like obviously, you know, if you're a doctor, you need to be qualified before you can start treating patients. But in most realms of business, you can pretty much just start doing it whenever you want. And if you're providing a good service and people are happy to pay you money for it and leaving good reviews, that's all the qualification you really need. Secondly, I think it's really important when doing this whole business, startup, entrepreneur, making money online thing to stand on the shoulders of the giants that have come before us. Entrepreneurship in business isn't really a new thing anymore. Like it's a very well-trodden path that people have been doing for decades, if not centuries. And like in the last few decades, we've got loads and loads of books, podcasts, websites, articles, interviews with people who have set up their own businesses. And those people have done a really good job of sharing all the things they know. So specific resources that you'll find helpful. Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Workweek, absolutely incredible resource of just thinking about entrepreneurship. There's a website called Indie Hackers that has interviews with founders of successful internet businesses. They've got about 100 podcast episodes so far. Each of those are amazing. They're all incredibly inspiring, and you can learn a lot from these people. There's a guy called Paul Graham. He's a partner at Y Combinator. That's like the Ivy League of startup accelerators in America. He's written a ton of essays on his website about how to get startup ideas, how to start your own startup. Seth Godin has a podcast called Startup School. Y Combinator has a podcast and also has a Startup School series of videos. There's so much stuff out there for us to learn about entrepreneurship and business that it's kind of like trying to be a doctor without understanding anatomy and physiology. Like, you know, it's kind of the basics. You probably should understand the basic literature, and then, you know, you can go off and do what you want. But there's so much stuff out there that we should definitely be standing on the shoulders of giants before we're kind of taking the plunge into entrepreneurship. Thirdly, if you're thinking of starting a business, it's incredibly useful to at least know the basics of how to code. And this is for 2 main reasons. So firstly, knowing how to code opens your mind up to potential business ideas. Like it's common startup advice that the best way to come up with startup or business ideas is not to sit down with your friends and brainstorm startup ideas, but it's to identify problems that you have in your life day to day that you might be able to solve by creating a business or creating a product. And if you know how to code, you kind of know the realms of possibility, like you know what can be done. And so if, let's say you're a doctor and you're working in healthcare and you discover some inefficiency, or you know, you're a student and you discover something that everyone's doing that could be done better, just the fact that you know how to code means that you'll be discovering these possibilities a lot more than someone who doesn't. And secondly, knowing how to code is really helpful because then when you have an idea, let's say, you know, you're Mark Zuckerberg and you have the idea for Facebook, or you're me and you have the idea for the, you know, running these courses, you can then just turn it into a business by yourself without needing to rely on bringing someone else in who knows how to code. So for example, with 6med, if I didn't know how to make a website, our course would have had 12 people at the local mosque in Southend-on-Sea, and that would have been the end of it. But just this ability of like to create a website is what allowed it to become a national and then later international business. Just like knowing how to code is so helpful for that. And if you're interested in learning how to code, there is a fantastic computer science fundamentals course over at brilliant.org. It takes you through the basic principles of algorithms, computers, and programs, and it guides you through interesting and fun little problems along the way to help solidify your understanding of these core concepts. And after you've gone through that, you can go through their Programming with Python course. Python is the world's most popular programming language, and you can do pretty much anything with Python, from building a simple website all the way through to writing machine learning algorithms. If you're into this whole entrepreneurship thing and you're interested in learning how to code, I'd highly recommend you head over to brilliant.org/Ali, and the first 200 people to visit that link will get 20% off a premium subscription. So yeah, huge thank you to Brilliant for sponsoring this video, and let's move on to the next point. Fourthly, and on a related note, it's also really useful to kind of develop a taste for design and develop a taste for what looks pretty and how to make stuff look pretty. And this ability to make stuff look pretty is an absolute superpower in the world that we live in today. Just taking the example of 6med, the business, a big part of why it was successful initially, even though we were competing against the big names in the market, was just because our website looked pretty. It looked legit. I'd been doing web design for ages. I knew how to make a pretty looking website. And at the time, in like 2012, 2013, it wasn't as easy for just anyone to make a website with Squarespace or Wix or whatever. And like in my life personally, it's not just 6med, the business, that's benefited from my design background. It's pretty much everything else I've ever done. So for example, within medicine, I've given presentations at conferences and I've won those, I've won prizes for those. And the feedback has been, oh, your poster presentation looked really good. I've attended these like medical hackathons where like programming competitions where you build something and pitch it to judges. And like 3 of them that I attended, we ended up winning first prize. And I think a big part of that was because our PowerPoint presentation just looked prettier than everyone else's. I even got invited to join the board of this like international plastic surgery charity that does reconstructive surgery missions abroad. And that was because they had a website. I offered my services. I was like, hey, I can make your website look a bit prettier. And they were like, sure, come on board. And that gave me access to this network of amazing plastic surgeons that I wouldn't have otherwise had contact with. And then also this YouTube channel, like, the thumbnails have a similar design. I think they look kind of pretty. I think the production value of these videos is quite reasonable. That ability to add production value to everything that you do is an amazing superpower that benefits everything you do in life, not just in business. And so yeah, if you're sold on that and you want to teach yourself the basics of design, I'd recommend installing a browser extension called Muesli. And what that does is that it replaces your new tab, on Chrome or Safari with like web design inspiration or some interesting typography or graphic design examples. It used to be a source of procrastination for me to just browse web design inspiration. And then as I discover things, I'd bookmark them. And then over time, as you become exposed to good design, you develop a taste for it. And so when you're then making your own stuff, making your own website or making your own posters, or even just, generating a flyer for some event that you're running at your local mosque or church or whatever, then you just have the ability to make it look pretty. And just that ability to make it look pretty just adds so much. Point number 5, I think it's really helpful to work with friends. So there's that classic saying in startups or whatever, that if you want to go fast, you should go alone. But if you want to go far, you should go together. And I think that's really important. But also, especially if you're a student, it's just, and actually even if you're not a student, it's just so much more fun when you're building a business, like doing stuff with your friends. It's just like an amazing experience. Like I kind of liken it to going camping. Like, you're building your tent and you're like building a fire and all that stuff. It's just more enjoyable when you're doing it with friends, people that you like, you've got people helping out with it. And yeah, you might have to sacrifice a little bit of equity early on, but at the start, people are going to be sacrificing their time. They're going to want equity. That's absolutely fine. Given that the whole point of running a business and the whole point of doing anything is really just because we think it's going to make us happier, why not make ourselves happier by getting friends involved from day one? And that was a thing that I did with 6med, and I'm really glad I did early on. About half of the medics in my college ended up teaching courses for us, and we had a team of like 20, 25 people, all of whom me and the founding people were friends with. And that just made for a really fun environment. And although there were challenges and stuff along the way, just working with friends makes the whole experience of running a business that much more enjoyable. Point number 6 is that you should start off really, really small. And this is a really important point because whenever we're coming up with ideas for businesses or thinking of starting something, it's far too easy to get into this mindset where we keep on adding features. Oh, it would be amazing if our app had this. Oh, it'd be cool to add that. And then the feature list keeps on growing. And eventually we just never end up getting anything out the door because we're too concerned about trying to add new features, trying to make the thing better. And in the startup world, there's this idea of an MVP, a minimal viable product, which is sort of the smallest version of your product or your app or whatever that you can feasibly get in front of people. So you start off really small, you build this tiny version, you get it out in front of people, and then over time, using user feedback and stuff, you then iterate on the design and you just add more and more features over time and improve the product in small ways. And this doesn't even apply just for businesses, it also applies to starting any kind of creative endeavor. Like, the artist who wants to start off by making their first piece, the Mona Lisa, isn't gonna get anywhere. But you have your sketchbook, you do these little drawings. Equally for YouTube channels, if I had someone like, a Peter McKinnon video or a Matt D'Avella video as my sort of I need to get this good before I release a video, I would never have ended up releasing anything at all. And the thing that I told myself really early on was that my first 50 or 100 videos are just going to be absolutely terrible anyway, so I might as well just kind of get over that, and then I can hopefully work towards making good videos. Point number 7 is do things that don't scale. And I think this advice originated from a chap called Paul Graham, who is one of the partners at Y Combinator that I mentioned earlier. And I'll link the essay in which he talks about this, where he gives loads of really good examples. But the main idea is that you want to do things that don't scale, i.e. at the start, you want to be putting in extra effort to make your customers happy, to recruit new customers, all that stuff. Famous example, the guys who founded Airbnb, initially in their first 30-day period where, it's a bit sort of touch and go, no one really knew what was going to happen. They physically went door to door in New York to all the Airbnb listings, and they offered to take professional photos for those listings for free. And that's the sort of thing that, obviously they just can't do anymore because there are now millions of people using Airbnb. But at the start, it was that physical effort that was needed to be put in by the founders in order to make, the snowball start to roll. Equally, there was a company called Wufoo that's doing very well. For their first few years, they sent handwritten physical thank you cards to each of their customers. And it's hard to imagine a company doing that in this day and age. But if you're starting a startup and you can put in the extra physical effort of delighting your customers and recruiting additional customers initially, then you're well on your way to success. And I read about all these stories. So when we started 6med, what I did was for the first couple of years, whenever we'd get a new order in, I would email them personally and say, hey, look, thanks for signing up to our course. This is a bit about who I am. This is our team. We've got loads of expertise amongst us. If you have any question at all about the medicine application process, about your A-levels, about studying, about anything, just reply to this email and we'll get back to you. And we had lots of customers being like, oh, wow, I didn't realize you guys were, so like personable, that general vibe. Do things that don't scale, as Paul Graham says, put in the effort to delight your customers, your students, whatever, early on, and hopefully that'll lead to rewards further down the line. And plus, ideally we'd continue to have this attitude of delighting our customers as our business is growing. All right, point number 8, expect failure, because chances are your startup is going to fail, but the stats, like 80% of them do. 80% of the ones that do succeed are not around in 5-10 years time. Essentially, chances are very, very, very unlikely that your thing will go well. And in fact, I had 5 failed businesses that I tried to start up while I was in secondary school, or high school if you're American. 5 failed businesses. Me and my friend James, each year we'd come out with a new plan to make money, and it would fail every single time. And it was the 6th one that was this idea for the BMAT crash course, and that was eventually the thing that blossomed into 6med, and that made a massive difference to my life. But the point I want to make is that each time you fail, it's actually, it's that classic cliche. Failure is just a learning opportunity. Had I not gone through those 5 failures beforehand, if I'd given up after the first one, I wouldn't have known how to code in PHP, I wouldn't have known how to make websites, I wouldn't have known what goes into accepting payments online, any of this sort of stuff. It was going through those failures that ultimately led to the success. And the nice thing about starting a business as well is that you don't really have any startup capital and any startup costs these days, especially if you're starting an internet business. For a few dollars, you can get a website domain, get web hosting, and start accepting credit card payments online literally immediately. So in a weekend, and by spending maybe $10, $20, you've got this whole setup and you can build your online business based on that. So your costs are essentially zero and the potential upside is absolutely massive. Again, that reference to Indie Hackers, that website I mentioned earlier, they've got loads of interviews on their podcast of people like you and me who have set up websites or apps or whatever from their bedrooms for practically zero money, who are then making tens of thousands of dollars a month further down the line. If you treat it as a learning opportunity, don't be too put out if your thing fails, because it's not really a failure. It's, you've learned stuff and then that'll set you up for success further down the line. Point number 9, and this is something that I try to tell myself a lot, is that we should always ask ourselves why we're really doing it. So, it's easy enough to get caught up in the hype of it, and once you start a business and it's growing, it's all very exciting. But then, like for me, it was about 2015, 2016, around the point where our revenue started to sort of stagnate, decline a little bit, and then more competitors came into the market, and then I was kind of thinking, oh damn, I have to put in all this work, but I'm not really enjoying running this business anymore. And then I came across a fantastic book by an amazing chap called Derek Sivers, and that book is called Anything You Want, 40 Lessons for a New Kind of Entrepreneur, and I featured that in one of my videos, 3 books that changed my life, because this book really did change my life. And in this book, he talks about, it's very short, it takes about 20 minutes to read, but he talks about lessons for entrepreneurs, kind of like this video, but just much better. He's talking about lessons for entrepreneurs that he gained from setting up a company called CD Baby and then selling it eventually for $22 million. And there's a quote in it, which is probably my favorite quote of all time. And that's a quote that I remind myself of whenever I'm feeling down or whenever I'm, too focused on the numbers. Never forget why you're really doing what you're doing. Are you helping people? Are they happy? Are you happy? Are you profitable? isn't that enough? And this is just like an absolutely amazing philosophy that, you know, the only reason we run businesses is because we think it's going to make us happy and it'll help people. So if we're happy running it and we're helping people and we're profitable, like we're not losing money, then why does it matter what the numbers are? Why does it matter what our growth rate is? Why does it matter what our retained earnings as percentage of growth or whatever, all this stuff? It doesn't matter. You know, as long as we're enjoying it, as long as we're having fun, as long as we're helping people. And I think that's a really important thing to remind ourselves. And especially, you know, even with things like YouTube, anytime I start to get too focused on the numbers, like, oh, that video only got 20,000 views. I was hoping it would get 70,000 views. Like, it's just such a pointless game to play. This is still fun. I'm having a good time, hopefully helping out people, and that's all that's really needed. And finally, point number 10 is just start. If you're interested in entrepreneurship, if you've gone through this really long video so far and you're at this point, you probably don't really need any more information. You don't need more knowledge before you start something, even if you don't know how to code. Just like get an idea and start working on it, and then you can learn the stuff you need to know as you go along. People liken it to, you know, the analogy of, you know, like going to the gym. Like, people don't get ripped by reading about going to the gym or reading about workouts. They get ripped by, you know, putting in consistent effort and turning up and eating healthily over a very long period of time. It's the same in anything in life. It's the same in startups, entrepreneurs, business. So much so that it's become such a cliche that you get these entrepreneurs who read everything and consume all the products and all the information about entrepreneurship and yet never actually start something. So yeah, it's good to stand on the shoulders of giants. It's good to listen to Tim Ferriss and read his book and listen to indie hackers and watch all the Y Combinator stuff. But don't think that that's a substitute for actually doing your own thing, because when you start, that is when you really start to learn. And then you can apply all the lessons you're learning from this stuff as you're going along. So those were my 10 top tips for budding entrepreneurs. I hope you found that useful. I'll put loads of links in the video description to podcasts, interviews, articles, books, etc. that I've personally found helpful. But the point I want to make ultimately is that you should just start. Like, if you're thinking of starting a business and you've gotten to this point in the video, just go for it. I promise you it'll be an incredible experience and it will change your life. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.